Hi, I'm Nan Simonson, and I'm about to make a pumpkin soup. Why a pumpkin soup? Well, in a few days it's going to be October, and we can find pumpkins. I was at our local, we call it Corona Family Farms because for decades this family has this plot of land, a huge plot of land, and they produce seasonal foods. And oh, we love going there every Sunday we go. And they had what they call Cinderella squash that looks just like the carriage and the pumpkins in the Cinderella story with those deep scallops. Well, they had a piece that was cut, it was about a quarter of the squash, well, of the pumpkin. And so I bought it and I pushed a knife through it into sections. I roasted it and cut it into cubes, this cooked squash. And then I thought, now what am I going to do with this? My goal is to go there, buy everything that looks gorgeous, and then no matter what, use it. And that keeps us eating massive amounts of fruits and vegetables. And we also add to all of that grains and legumes and seeds and nuts because I eat only whole foods that are plant-based, no animal product at all. And in my book, Aging Powerfully, which has 10 letters that are acronyms for 10 lifestyle modalities that will keep us healthy. One of them is whole foods, as plant-based as you can be or as often as you can be for health and longevity. So I am going to show you what I'm going to do with the pumpkin. I have a refrigerator full of other things that I'm going to have a ball with because no matter what, we have everything finished by the next week, and we live on fruits and vegetables, grains and legumes, and seeds and nuts. So I have a couple of cups of onion here, and I buy my produce organic. That way I'm not as concerned about the pesticides and herbicides that they use on foods that are not organic. If it means you're not going to eat a fruit or a vegetable because you can't get organic, forget that. Eat it anyway, wash it well, eat it anyway, because the best thing that we can have is fruits and vegetables, and as many as we can get every day. So I put those, I just spilled my chopped garlic. I put this onion into a dry pan. The other thing I don't do is I don't use additional oils. The processed oils, and they're all processed, even olive oil is processed, even if it's extra virgin olive oil. And you see how this is browning? Hot pan, stainless steel pan. I'm going to put a little bit of broth in here, and I make my own broth out of scraps of vegetables. You can see that on one of my YouTube videos. You hear that? What's happening is it is deglazing the pan, which means that the slightly browned bits are now becoming loose from the broth. Oh, here it is. And you'll see it sort of makes the whole thing even more brown. I do that a couple of times. What you're doing when you do this with onions, and every recipe tells you to do it, is that you're getting them to become more translucent, and as they cook, that sort of bitter biting edge of an onion softens. And it's the best way to add flavor to a recipe, browning your onions first. And again, I don't use oil because I don't want the omega-6 oils in my diet, plus why add hundreds of calories if you can get this kind of flavor without it. Okay, now I'm going to add to that a tablespoon of chopped garlic. Why a tablespoon? Well, the recipe calls for 3 teaspoons, and I do everything as much as I can in advance, just like the pumpkin was cooked well in advance. Even though for this recipe I could have put it in raw, and I could have used butternut squash. And you can buy butternut squash already chopped up if you don't want to go through all of this. But I put 15, 18 cloves of garlic chopped. I even have this nifty little chopper, and you'll see that in some of my videos. Tupperware has a little chopper that you pull a string, and I can do 16, 18 cloves of garlic, chop it up finely, and then I just keep them in here for the week. So I have a tablespoon of chopped garlic, which because some of my garlic cloves are big, some of them are small, I measured at one point and saw that a tablespoon of finely chopped garlic, chopped the way this is, you can see it's rather finely chopped, is 3 cloves. So a tablespoon. Browning that a little. You don't want to brown garlic too much. You certainly don't want to burn it, because if you do, it's bitter. The onion can take care of itself with that high heat. It simply weeps and gives you a beautiful caramelization. The garlic will burn. Okay, so you see how much browner that is? Not a drop of oil, and this beautiful whole food that is plant-based. All right, so what am I going to add to this? I'm going to add some ginger and a tiny bit of salt. Now what you can do is you can leave the salt out, especially if you are dealing with high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease. The salt is better left out. I use a little bit. And I'm going to throw in my cubed squash, meaning pumpkin, and I'm going to put in 1 large chopped Granny Smith apple. Yum, yum. Now, you're going to have some options with this recipe, because I'm making this into a Thai coconut curry pumpkin soup. That's where my flavor palette goes. I love curries. I love Thai food. I love the combination of flavors. And how do I get that Thai flavor? Using this. Thai Kitchen is the brand. You can find it in almost any store in the Asian area. And this is red curry paste. It's very red. And this jar, which is a couple of dollars, a few dollars, goes a long way. What does it have in it? I'm going to call it whole food. Spices, which include red chili and pepper, garlic, lemongrass, salt, shallots, a coriander root, and kefir lime peel. That's it. And this is going to give me a very authentic Thai flavor. And you're going to see what I'm going to finish that off with a little bit later that sort of nails it, the coconut part. Well, I'll tell you now, I add coconut milk, light coconut milk at the very end before I blend it. All right. I wish you could smell this, because it's wafting up those flavors that were in the paste, the red chili paste, the ginger, just ground ginger. Now I've got apple pumpkin. I'm going to put in about 3 cups of my vegetable broth. Just, you can buy low salt vegetable broth, organic vegetable broth from the market. This is a 1 quart bottle, which is 4 cups. Put about 3.5 cups in, and I'll decide later if I want it to be a little bit thinner. If I want it to be thicker, I'll just have to cook it some more and evaporate it. This is it for now. I'm going to let this go for about 25 minutes. Actually, I'm going to let it go until the apple is tender. If I hadn't already cooked the squash, the pumpkin, I would let it go until the pumpkin is tender. But it started out tender because I roasted it after making it into the wedges, put it on a pan, put it at 375, covered it lightly with foil, and roasted it for about an hour. And then then it was really easy to peel it off of. I had already gotten the seeds and the fibers out, to peel it off the back of the skin and then store it until I was ready to use it. And I've been thinking, what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do? Well, I love the idea of having this spicy coconut, pumpkin and apple soup tonight. All right, It's coming to a simmer. I'm going to lower it. I'm going to cook it for about 20-25 minutes. When you come back on, we'll be about to blend it, and that will be dinner tonight. Well, it didn't work out for me to add the blending part of the soup after I finished cooking, because by then it was time to eat. The place was getting messy. People are hungry. So I did that, and I'm coming back to you the next day with the equipment just to show you what I did. Last thing you saw, the soup was cooking. It cooked rather quickly because the pumpkin, and I don't know if I told you how I roasted the pumpkin and then just scraped it out of the skin once I roasted it, and I roasted it with foil on it. And so it was still moist. Did it in the oven at 350 for about 40 minutes. And if you have a squash or a pumpkin that fits in your microwave and you're trying to cut it and it's too hard to cut, I put it in my microwave 3 or 4 minutes. I'll try to stab it once with a thin blade, but sometimes you're not going to cook it enough to explode it anyway. But the 3 or 4 minutes softens the skin enough that you can open it. Okay, now, pumpkin soup was finished. I brought it to the sink, put it on a trivet in the pot. This was the pot I was using. And this is my Vitamix blender. It doesn't even require a high-speed blender, but what you need to know is it can be dangerous to put hot liquid into a mixer. You've got to make sure you've got a good carafe that can take it. This is a lucite. I'm gonna think just about any one of the blenders has a carafe that can take heat, but be aware of that. You could take this off of the heat for 15-20 minutes if you're not gonna serve it right away, or take it off, leave it, blend it, and reheat it if you're going to serve it at all that evening, otherwise, or that day. Otherwise, the whole thing can be cooled, blended, cooled to a degree, blended, and then refrigerated when it's completely cool. So I spooned the soup into, hold it close, into the carafe up to about here. In other words, I did half of the soup, put it in the carafe, put the cover on, locked it down because it did kind of splash up. But what I found is if I left it on a lower speed rather than turning it to high speed, really high speed, especially right away, I didn't get that real sort of explosiveness, and with hot food you don't want that at all. In addition, I opened this middle piece, and I could have completely taken it off, but I just put it on its side to catch anything, because when you agitate hot liquid, it just wants to expand its volume, and sometimes it just wants to spit up. But the other thing I did, because I still have the possibility in that case of splashing, I bought at Home Depot, and these are like auto rags. They're much larger until you wash them, and every time you wash them for a while, they lose some of their white lint. But I love these. I keep one in my refrigerator on my counter, because I wipe the counter with this, and I'll use a fresh one every day rather than kitchen towels, because quite often the counter has food on it, and the food has, as it sits through the day, bacteria, and I don't want that on my kitchen towels. I could use paper towels to wipe, but that's a lot of trees we're going through. So I really like these, and this was a fresh one. I put it on top, and if I worried about it coming out through the edges, I would have put it on top. What happened is I got none on here, but for safety's sake, I want to explain that to you. Once it was blended, and it blended beautifully, you'll see a photo of the soup. I love these bowls. I used the largest one. This is a set of 5 bowls. I believe I got them on Amazon. They're stainless steel. Why do I like them? I'm not going to put a hot soup into a glass bowl, even a tempered glass. It would worry me. And I can put anything in here and let it cool, because that's the value of
stainless steel. So I use them for things like that. Actually, I use them for a lot of things because they're lightweight. I'm not going to break them. They're easy to work with. And I also have a stack of beautiful glass ones as well, Pyrex bowls of all sizes. Anyway, poured the soup in here, then took the rest out of the pan, put it in, same thing, blended it, poured it in here, mixed it up, and just washed this out a little bit. Why? Because there were some bits that didn't get into here. Just little bits of, it wasn't pumpkin skin, but anyway, it wouldn't have been necessary, but I didn't want any chunks at all once the soup was blended to a cream, really. Put the whole thing back in and reheat it if you want to, if you need to. I don't think I even reheated it, so I wouldn't have had to put the whole thing back in here. I could have let it just cool in the bowl. And that's all I have to say to you. We put it in bowls. I put toasted slivered almonds on top and a little bit of cilantro because I love cilantro on anything. It could have been parsley, it could have been nothing green, and it was delicious, absolutely delicious. I hope you love it. Have a great day.